Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good evening to you. This is Talk and this is Petrie, and I'm with you for the next 3 hours. Quite a heavy conversation coming up, and I do want to talk to you about this at midnight, but I'm perplexed as to what to ask you, to set just one question. Normally I will come to you with a question, and this has been a real struggle. Because I don't think there is a question. There's just horror, there's just anger, and there's just disbelief with this story. And I think that's why I want to talk to you about it. But I'm not sure I know what to ask you, except what the hell is going on? Why is the world like this? The topic is about paedophilia. Like I said, heavy topic. Child sex abuse is becoming increasingly difficult for police to manage. And officers are arresting an average of 1,000 potential offenders every single month. According to the National Crime Agency, the number of arrests has roughly doubled in the past 3 years. Statistically, potential offenders are in every community. So according to statistics, paedophiles are in every community and victims in every school. Just think about that. Just think about that for a moment. Paedophiles are in every community and victims in every school. What the hell is going on? Why is this happening? And why aren't we angry? Why aren't we angrier about this? The proliferation of child sexual abuse images online, not just in the dark web, everywhere. And for those of you who are watching, I have an image for you. I'm going to show you this image because this is one of the most disturbing things I have ever seen, and I have been at war. Here it is. This, on the right-hand side of that image, there's a little girl holding a teddy bear, right? That is a child sex doll that was being sold on Shein. That is anatomically, the boast in the sales pitch, correct. That, what is she, 3, 4? This was being sold on a, I don't know, Shein, is it a fashion marketplace? One of those marketplaces? Fast fashion. This was being sold into Europe. This little doll, this sex doll. It is so disturbing. And for those of you who are listening on radio, she is this really tiny little girl holding a teddy bear with her hair in plaits. I'd say between the ages of 3 and 4. And this is a sex doll being sold for, I think it was $117. Who's buying them? What the hell? What the hell is going on? Why are there so many paedophiles amongst us? Why is this being normalized? How is that doll a thing? What kind of sick pervert looks at a child or a baby and wants to have sex with it, wants to rape it. What kind of person does that? And what do we do about it? I promise you, it's like that people are trying to normalise this. That society is not angry enough. We're not. Every community, there's a paedophile, and in every school, there's a victim. Every single school, statistically, across this country, there are victims. Let that sink in. So that's what we're going to be talking about at midnight. I know it's incredibly serious, but it is incredibly serious. And these figures have just come out. 1,000 arrests a month. 1,000. And they're just the ones that are discovered, right? Give me a call. I just want to share anger about that. I don't know. Like I said, there's no natural question to this. Just what do we do about it? Why are we accepting this? Why are we not angry? Or how is this happening? Why is this happening? Has this always happened? And we didn't know about it? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text me as well, please. I just want to feel like I'm not alone with this, I think. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. So that's coming up at midnight. Michael Crick is going to be here in the studio, broadcaster and journalist, and he's going to be here to go through the newspapers. Richard Fitzwilliams, the royal commentator, will be here as we discuss Beatrice and Eugenie and what their future looks like, because it's not looking good to be part of the royal family. Professor Peter Hahn is also going to be with us. He's going to be talking about this Trump's board of peace and what that could mean for the world. So we'll be looking at that as well. But as I was saying a moment ago, the National Crime Agency has today reported that an average of 1,000 suspected child sex abusers are being arrested every month, with a number of arrests having doubled in the past 3 years. Paedophiles use technology and online platforms to find like-minded individuals and create and share and promote child sex abuse material. Meanwhile, a Europe-wide investigation into fast fashion giant Shein is looking into the sale of childlike sex dolls. The retailer has since removed the items after they were reported to the French authorities, and there's a big investigation going on about that at the moment, as you would expect. But what is driving these people? And just how is it even remotely possible that someone can look at a child and have sexual thoughts? Well, joining me now to discuss this, the sort of the making of the mind of a paedophile, is Raj Persaud, who is a consultant psychiatrist and broadcaster. Raj, good to talk to you again. Of course, all of this comes at the same time as we're finding out more and more evil through the Epstein files. And I think most right-minded people are wondering what the hell's going on.
You're absolutely right. And the statistics that you've mentioned are very, very frightening. So the first question is this a new phenomenon? Is there an epidemic of pedophilia that we're facing in the modern world? Or has pedophilia been around for generations, for centuries, or has it increased dramatically? So one theory among psychologists and psychiatrists is that it has increased dramatically because of access provided by the internet. So although the debate has focused on should young children have access to social media, and right now there's a court case going on in the USA about whether Facebook is addictive to children, designed to be addictive, there's another issue, which is all these children on the internet, and some children not that much older than the sex doll that you mentioned there, right, are on the internet. So is it the case that access is being provided by the internet? But even if that is the case, what is driving so many men, and it is largely men, to be interested in young children, is you're perplexed by it. And I think it's important to think about the science in terms of studying it. But before I discuss that bit, which I will in a minute, I do need to point out that many of your viewers will be angry at the idea of studying the subject. They think we should just throw these people in jail and it's just they're evil. I have to point out that I think it's to the benefit of the children if we study them scientifically, because we can do better at identifying them early and protect children. I think the idea of studying it scientifically...
I completely agree with that, actually, Raj.
Okay, but I just need to point out that we're going to get angry because it's a subject that's very emotive, at people being annoyed at the idea of scientists trying to study these people. But I think it's important because actually it's a way of protecting children in the longer run. So let's discuss some of the theories. Let's discuss perhaps one of the commonest theories, and you could call this like a sex diversion theory or a blockage theory. The idea is that normal heterosexual men are interested in adult women normally, but when that gets blocked for whatever reason, and let's take maybe a slightly gory example, a heterosexual man commits a crime, finds himself in prison for several years, let's say, okay? It is not beyond the bounds of most people's imagination to understand that in prison, when heterosexual men don't have access to women, they develop a temporary interest in men, okay? So they become temporarily gay or homosexual. So that's about an idea that there's a sex drive, and men have, roughly speaking, 20 times the rate of testosterone in their bodies compared to women, so they have a higher sex drive. And if it gets blocked, it will find an outlet somewhere else, okay? So just go with that idea for a second. Now, another idea is that the status of women has changed dramatically in the last 50 or 60 years. If you go back to the opening lines of the famous Jane Austen novel, Pride and Prejudice, about the idea that basically women, because they were not financially independent in the Victorian times, all a man had to do was have a pay packet, and he was made in terms of female interests, right? He didn't have to be good at conversation, etc., etc. Now women are financially independent. The bar has gone up dramatically in terms of what men, the average heterosexual man, has to do to court and be successful in terms of female attention. So if we think about this incel movement, involuntary celibacy amongst men, the theory is that basically there's a large group of men who haven't got the skills or have low IQ, to put it bluntly, and as a result find themselves left out in the cold. They're unable to make it in the normal dating world. And one theory, and there is research evidence that if you study pedophiles, they do have a lower IQ in general than the average person. They're a bit childlike. Okay, so if they're childlike and immature and they're unable, going back to my blockage theory, to be successful in the world of adult women, it will get diverted elsewhere. I'm not justifying it. I'm not defending it. I'm trying to explain it. Okay, this blockage or diversion theory is saying the reason you've got a dramatic rise is basically a lot of men just can't actually make it in the normal world of dating adult women, and they therefore are childlike, and they find it easier because they're blocked in one place to move towards children. Because they have maybe a lower IQ and poor social skills, they find it easier to interact with children because they are more childlike. But I did actually make a BBC program with the police paedophile unit. It's got a special code name, but the police who specialize in pursuing paedophiles. And what was very interesting talking to them about their own personal lives is they were hyper-vigilant. If they heard like there was a new PE teacher at school, right, they became hyper-vigilant. They wanted to go and meet that PE teacher because they were so aware, and they had maybe a slightly distorted view of how common it was. Maybe now we're discovering it's not a distorted view. So what the answer in terms of the question you first posed is, given how common it is, vigilance amongst adults in terms of trying to protect children seems to be one of the key points. But one final point I want to make about very interesting brain scanning research, which suggests the brains of pedophiles are actually different from the brains of normal heterosexual men. That when you show in a brain scanner, which is looking at brain activity, pictures of just like that sex doll that you mentioned to pedophiles, there is brain arousal activity, which is very different to when you show them pictures of semi-naked adult women. So there's something going on at their brains at a deep level. And the reason why that is important, pedophilia is a very unusual crime in the recidivism rate. There's a high recidivism rate in many crimes, okay, but it's particularly high in pedophilia. So people are often very cynical in my field as to whether actually a paedophile can ever really be released safely out into the community. And that's an important point to think about, because the police are under-resourced in terms of catching them, and it is the tip of the iceberg. But even when they're caught, their monitoring afterwards in terms of possible safe release into the community is a really deep question. There's a very high recidivism rate, particularly with paedophilia, and it looks like maybe they've got a brain problem that could be lifelong. And therefore, we have to throw more resources, not just at catching them, but at monitoring them after they've been caught.
Is it possible to say whether paedophiles, therefore, are born or are they made?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, and we don't know the answer to that. The current theory is not that they're born, but they face traumatic early childhood experiences or bizarre or strange childhood experiences. Because another point is not just about sexual arousal. You talk in a way, you're invoking another idea that why is it we normally, when we see a child have a normal, empathic, sympathetic response, that we want to look after children or we want to protect them. It's just an emotional feeling about children, right? You don't want to go and do something bad to them or make them suffer. There's another theory as well, which is it's not just about a sex drive. I mean, many people have a sex drive, but they wouldn't go and torment someone, right, or get off on that. In other words, we all have a sense in which inflicting pain or suffering or someone being disturbed by our attention is a turn-off. We will move away from
yes,
someone.
Because adult men who fancy adult women don't go out and rape adult women. Right?
Yes.
You know, so there is a control mechanism that many, given even if they've got a high sex drive, they are perfectly capable of controlling that. We know that the rape rates are disastrously high and are not looked into, but that is not all men, right? So we have to acknowledge that. But then you get paedophiles who apparently just can't help themselves. You know, they're feeding the monster constantly by being online, by, you know, all of the other things they're doing. And I was reading that this is also to do with paying 20 quid to watch a child being tortured. You know, it's more, it goes deeper than just wanting to have sex with a child, right? And this crosses millionaires, billionaires, celebrities, you know, this runs the gamut of society.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point that I think you're agreeing with me is there's another thing going on beyond sex drive, which is something's missing in the empathy response, which we normally have. And there's another theory, which is they have disturbed childhood experiences that lead them to a sort of cruel outlook, to a lack of empathy. And that is another crucial ingredient. There's several things going on, not just one thing going on with paedophilia. Obviously, it's a popular theory that they themselves have been sexually abused. And although there's some evidence, a little bit of evidence that some of them have, in the vast majority of cases that isn't the explanation. And one simple way you can see that is that the most common gender that is abused are women, and women are not very commonly found amongst pedophiles. There are some women who end up being pedophiles, but it's a very small proportion, right? So the idea that being abused in early childhood leads to paedophilia has got a flaw with it, given the point that women are much more likely to be abused in childhood, and they not, generally speaking, very rarely become pedophiles.
Become the perpetrators. The other thing that I think is interesting to note, and we certainly would if we were talking about, I don't know, gangs and stabbing, is skin colour. Because largely, paedophiles are men, and they are white men. And they are also, demographically, what we're discovering now is that they're at the younger age of the spectrum. So,
yeah, so
that is worth noting. Like I said, if we were talking about stabbing and I said, look, there seems to be more, you know, we would perhaps talk about the effect. But it is fascinating to me that this is a white male crime on the whole.
But that's another thing to think about with the internet, the development of subcultures. So what's also happening out there on the internet is people are on the peripheries of something. Maybe they wouldn't normally be drawn into it, but as they get drawn into it and it gets legitimized, they enter a group of people who start legitimizing or saying it's normal when it's not normal. Yeah. So one of the problems with the internet is you can always find someone out there or a group of people who will help you believe something that really is not normal is normal. So that's another problem, I think. A recent invention is invention of all these subcultures where you can find refuge of any of your bizarre or strange or cruel or terrible ideas, where there'll be a group of people to support it. But another point I have to make is that, yes, there's people spending all their time online. You and I don't spend all our time online because we find the real world a bit more interesting, right? And we want to be out there in the real world engaging with it. So one of the other issues is what's going wrong with the fact people turn away from the real world. I mean, obviously the internet is an addictive experience for some people, but I go back to my first theory that there's a group of people who are failing to engage out there in the real world. They retreat into the virtual world, and once you do that, you're in real danger, because it's a very strange and bizarre place, the virtual world, compared to the real world.
What's the answer, Raj? I mean, you said that the recidivism rates, the reoffending rates are incredibly high with this, and going to prison. And actually, I don't think we imprison them for long enough in the first place, particularly those who are looking at child sexual abuse images, because that is always a precursor to to going on and doing it in real life. Is there an answer? Is castration the answer? Is chemical castration the answer? Does that, I mean, that would take away the sex drive, but would it take away the paedophilia? Would it turn to violence instead, potentially?
No. I think the evidence of chemical castration is it's a pretty effective treatment. I'm not sure about the law around it at the moment, because I think
they have to volunteer, don't they?
Yeah, I think they have to agree to it, and I think some of them do agree because they can see that actually it's going to be deeply problematic for them to continue with that lifestyle. But obviously, a large number of them don't agree to it. But in terms of the answers, there has to be a multi-agency attack on this thing. The police have got to be much better resourced because they're stretched, and as a result, this thing has fewer. It's not resourced so well. The judicial system, when people do get caught and they are in prison, has got to be much better at hanging on to them and keeping an eye on them because of their very high recidivism rate. But every child that gets abused, there's some adult somewhere nearby who was meant to be looking after and keep an eye on that child. Yeah. And something has gone wrong at that level. And that's what the police who I saw who were involved in the special unit that pursues pedophiles, they were really hyper vigilant in a way that I wasn't aware was possible, right? Even things like there's a new scoutmaster in the scout group. They would immediately go along and get to meet the person. Okay. Obviously, they would flash their badge as well and say, I'm a policeman. This is my son, and they were sending a signal, which is "Be careful, back off," or whatever, right? But anyway, so I thought their vigilance was way beyond what I would thought. I thought I was a good parent, but that was way beyond. And maybe we all, given what you've just said, have got to realize something. We all got to become much more vigilant, even as a neighbor to other children. Right? And observe what's going on and be aware that maybe one of the points you're making, it's a much more dangerous world than we think it is. And therefore, any child that you see at any time, start thinking, is that child showing any signs that they're not happy, and what might that be about? And maybe we have to be a bit more nosy as neighbors, right? And there's a very British thing about reserve. You don't want to get involved, but maybe we have to start getting nosier. It's better, actually, for the children in terms of protection, I mean,
when you see that statistically there are potential offenders in every community and victims in every school, that's from the NCA. I mean, that crystallises the mind, right?
Yes, you're right that there's obviously a group of predators out there that we have to be aware of, and the police have got to keep a better eye. But ultimately, usually what happens is the community that reports on someone, or the community that sees something. So we have to take more responsibility, I think, to look after the children in our midst, and don't think it's just something to do with the police. Because actually, very often, the police act on information that comes from the community, because the police can't be everywhere. So I think that one of the take-home messages is we will have to become a lot more nosy and a lot more interested in what's going on around, and a lot more aware that our children are growing up in a much more dangerous world than when we grew up, and we would go off and play for hours.
And we'd be out the whole time.
I had no idea where we were.
No, the alarm clock was the lights going on in the evening. But we think they're safer at home, you see. That's the thing, isn't it? Everybody thinks their children are safer at home on the internet, and they are at much more peril. much more peril. Raj, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Let's do it again soon. Thank you very much indeed. Raj Baso there, consultant, psychiatrist and broadcaster. I'm going to take a quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And like I said, look, this conversation, it's just because this has come up in the news today. And I think that when news comes out at half term, there's almost a case of wanting to sort of brush it under the carpet. But the NCA, the National Crime Agency, has revealed that an average of 1,000 potential offenders each month are being arrested. Paedophiles are being arrested, and the numbers of those who are charged from that 1,000 are incredibly high. So I just don't know what's going on in the world. You know, we've got the whole Epstein lot going on. You know, there's been celebrities, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, the guy from that, who's that metal guy? The metal guy, Ian somebody, who went to prison. Anyway, the singer, he went to prison for paedophilia. He got his girlfriend to get him babies or something. Ian Watkins, thank you. Ian Watkins. So it's not just one type of person. This is across society. That somehow this sickness has been allowed to just grow and grow and grow. These numbers have doubled in the last 3 years. Doubled. The National Crime Agency is saying statistically that means there is a paedophile in every community and a victim in every single school in the country. It just, I just don't even, I look at this and I'm just like, why are we not furious? Why are we not marching in the streets? Why is it that there seems to be, that there's some sort of complicity with it? You know, in America, refusing to with the weight of evidence they've got, to take this seriously. Why is it in this country that paedophiles seem to just spend a few months in prison and then are out? Why is it that we have to suffer them in society? Why is it that there are so many of them? What the hell is going on? Seriously, what the hell is going on? Child sex dolls being sold on a fast fashion website. Like, that's just normal. That's just normal, isn't it? Let's just sell a doll that looks exactly like a 3-year-old. Anatomically correct, as it is in the bump, the selling bump. It's not just a doll to cuddle. This is a lifelike 3-year-old to have sex with. She's on the screen again because I'm so horrified by it. With a teddy bear. sold with a teddy bear. I don't know what to say. What kind of person looks at that and goes, oh yeah, I fancy it. What? Sick. It's sick. And they even got close to government, didn't they, with the paedophile information exchange. Do you remember that? Paedophile information exchange, trying to normalise it. Trying to say, well, it's just love's love. No, it isn't. Abuse is abuse. It's disgusting. What's wrong with you? I mean, I would say if you are somebody who's a paedophile, give me a call. But I know you won't, because you're a coward, and that's why you pick on little children. But hey, if you want to give me a call, justify yourself. Justify it. You think it's normal, and you think it's okay, because your little dirty, filthy buddies online have told you that it's normal and that it's okay. Call me. Tell me it's okay. Justify it. Justify it. 0344 499 1000. Write it down and give me a call at midnight.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. Let me remind you what's coming up. We're going to be going to Michael Crick. He's going to be here in the studio to go through the papers, and also going to be talking about whether the princesses, Eugenie and Beatrice, really have any kind of future in the royal family. But first, the former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, is on his way to Washington to attend the inaugural meeting of Donald Trump's Board of Peace as he joins its executive board. Now, the initiative's exclusive membership is set at £1 billion to join, and 25 countries have signed up, including Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Armenia. European leaders, including the UK's current Prime Minister Keir Starmer, have declined to be a part of it, as did Canada. Donald Trump, whose self-styled chairman position has been designated by himself for life, is expected to unveil £5 billion worth of funding for the reconstruction of Gaza. Professor Petrie Hosken joins me now, author and distinguished university professor at Ohio State University. Good to talk to you, Professor. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. How is this going to work?
Well, thank you, Petrie, for having me on. I'm happy to talk about the history and current affairs in U.S. foreign policy. I think President Trump's aspiration for the meeting tomorrow is to both launch a long-term and prolonged series of diplomatic initiatives that will lead to the goals he set in his 20-point peace plan last fall, and also more immediately to head off the possibility of a recurrence of full-scale war between Israel and Hamas over Gaza. The ceasefire that was achieved recently has been imperfect. There's been sporadic violence ever since, and the two powers seem to be circling the ring, if you will, perhaps gearing up for another round of more intense hostilities in the days and weeks ahead.
It strikes me, though, to declare peace is a little premature, and to declare any form of rebuilding is also premature, particularly considering what's happening in the West Bank, which the entire world is ignoring at the moment. Do you believe the intentions here of Trump are entirely honourable, that they're entirely about peace?
I do think that Donald Trump has aspirations, perhaps in an idealized way, of achieving peace in Gaza and elsewhere in the world. That does seem to have emerged in his rhetoric as an aspect of his legacy that he would like to make strong during his second administration. So I think his intentions are sincere. That said, his methods are unique, and while they have some potential for success, I think they're also flawed in some key ways. And so I'm not necessarily optimistic at this stage that he's going to accomplish the idealized objectives he has set out for himself. I think he really does want peace. I think his 20-point comprehensive plan has a lot of positive attributes. They're the type of terms that one would expect in any externally suggested peace plan. But the peace plan is also flawed. Like you said, it does not address the West Bank, which is the other side of the coin of equal merit from the Palestinian point of view. It's hard to imagine a full-scale, enduring Israeli-Palestinian peace taking shape and lasting unless the West Bank question is on the table. Okay. And there hasn't been any discussion of that yet. And as you, in fact, indicated, the Israelis have been slowly but surely gobbling up larger and larger segments of the West Bank, maybe hoping to create what they like to call facts on the ground, taking the issue off the table by simply removing the possibility of any other outcome. But that doesn't seem like a healthy step toward the outcome that President Trump has declared is indeed his intention.
It also an unusual way that Donald Trump goes about peace. I mean, you've just got to look at Russia. The whole world really confused as to his belief, his historical belief that the Ukrainians started this, that they're the aggressor, and seems to listen more closely to what Russia wants. Certainly the peace plan for Ukraine-Russia is one that favours Russia completely, 100%. And then we've got him, sending the Gerald Ford and others to the Hormuz Straits, or just outside of Iran. It's an odd way to declare peace.
Yes, well, it's true that President Trump is known to be erratic, to change directions, to say things that he eventually proves not to have believed in, as a way of dominating headlines, a way of throwing his adversaries, and in some cases his allies, off base, as a way of keeping the initiative and keeping the focus on himself, which speaks to his sense of self-greatness, if not narcissism. On the other hand, it is possible to compartmentalize, in other words, to seek peace in Gaza or in the Israeli-Palestinian front broadly construed, while still waging war or engaging in confrontational or adversarial action in other theaters of the world. Now, you're right to say that President Trump, seemingly aspiring to achieve a Nobel Peace Prize and declaring his Board of Peace now as having global aspirations of solving peace everywhere, he likes to tick off a list of 8 or 9 wars he has solved, supposedly single-handedly during his presidencies. And yet he engages in hostile action that seems contradictory. The takeover of Venezuela, or the occupation temporarily of Venezuela and the rest of its leader, his war posturing in the Gulf, his diplomacy toward Russia, Ukraine, those are good examples of how Trump seems to be pushing the world toward war rather than toward peace. He is a complex man. If we focus just on Israel-Palestine, I think that he does believe that he could and should achieve an Israeli-Palestinian peace plan. He seems to have high optimism that the 20-point peace plan he laid out and the Board of Peace and the International Stabilization Force that come out of that are the right steps to take to sort of push the ball down the road toward the goal. By contrast, I'm a historian of U.S. diplomacy in the Middle East, and I've been looking at U.S. efforts to make Arab-Israeli or Israeli-Palestinian peace since the 1950s. And there's a long legacy there of failure, of U.S. officials writing up what they construe to be equal, balanced, fair, impartial objectives for peace, presenting those terms to the local belligerents, and then having the initiative crash on the launch pad because one or both of the local sides simply rejects out of hand the terms that the U.S. has put on the table. What looks good from an American point of view or an external point of view looks very bad to the locals. So the lesson I have drawn is that any lasting peace probably has to originate in the initiative of the locals, or at least has to have a very strong degree of local ownership. It can't be imposed by the outside. That's an affront to the national esteem and the national honor of one power or the other. Something has to change in their relationship, or they can begin to trust each other to a degree that they have not heretofore. There are some examples in the larger Arab-Israeli conflict of peace being made and of lasting for decades thereafter, Egypt and Jordan in the 1970s and 1990s, to cite the two most celebrated cases. So it's not out of the question that the Palestinians and Israelis could come around to the dawn of a new day where they begin to trust each other and make mutual compromises. I'm not sure they're there yet. I haven't yet been persuaded that President Trump's current initiative through the Board of Peace and the conference that will happen in Washington tomorrow is going to be an effective first step. On the other hand, I'm not sure I see much harm in him trying. I give him credit for aspiring toward peace. I give him credit for taking certain action. His peace plan does have features of balance. It does ultimately call for the construction of a Palestinian state, which I think personally is essential to any enduring peace. And it does envision a final peace treaty between the two sides. And thereby it eschews the alternative that President Trump seemed to have been pursuing in the past of actually favoring an all-out Israeli victory, of restoring stability to the theater by having a dominant Israel and perhaps another massive Palestinian exodus, a cleansing, ethnic cleansing of Gaza or something like that. He has seemed to have reversed direction from that policy that appeared to be in place in his earlier years, and now he's aspiring, at least on paper, to move towards something more even-handed.
Well, let's hope it works. I mean, like you said, I'm not optimistic, but look, we've all got to hope that it works. But like you said as well, it can't work while the West Bank issue is still raging. Professor, I know you've got to get off, so thank you very much indeed for joining me. I look forward to talking to you again. There's so many questions that I have that we didn't get time for, but Professor Petrie Hosken there, author and distinguished university professor at Ohio State University. Thank you very much indeed.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. We've got Michael Crick coming in, by the way, at the top of the hour to go through the papers. And don't forget Talkback as well. And like I said, I'm yet to form an actual question, which is very important for a phone-in, but I do want you to call me. I do want to talk to you because I'm just so perplexed by the whole National Crime Agency saying that 1,000 people are being arrested a month suspected of paedophilia, and that every community and every school in the land is affected by this. That just horrifies me. I don't even know. I don't even know where to go with it. I can't understand it. But there you go. So I would like you to give me a call, 0344 499 1000. If not, just so we can have a conversation about it, really. It's really troubled me. Anyway, let's move on. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. There's a bridge. Yeah, we'll leave that. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, have been considering taking part in an interview to clear their name as they've grown frustrated with their parents' connection to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Well, let's not just call him a sex offender, let's call him a paedophile. Jeffrey Epstein. The sisters, now 37 and 35 respectively, are among the few members of the Windsor clan to hold the HRH titles, meaning His or Her Royal Highness. But they do not represent the monarch as working members of the firm, and they lost their security privileges in 2011. I think Andrew was quite upset about that at the time, I seem to remember. But do they have a future in the royal family, given the embarrassment of their parents? I mean, look, we've all probably got embarrassing parents, but this is on another scale, isn't it? To discuss this, Richard Fitzwilliams, royal commentator and author of the brilliant piece that I read earlier on today. Good to see you, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good to talk to you. Look, there is some sympathy for these young women, right? I mean, they're not responsible for their parents' behaviour, but they sort of sided with Mexit against, you know, Catherine and William, and that can't have been a happy thing. You never see them really having much fun together. What's going on there?
Well, the dynamic between Beatrice and Eugenie and the Prince and Princess of Wales, it's been the subject of a lot of speculation. I mean, I can only say that I think it's fair to comment that they're reportedly not close, but we know that Eugenie has been close to Harry and Meghan. I mean, that has been a relationship. Indeed, it was thought at one time with the rift in the royal family that she might play a rather important role in bringing about some form of reconciliation. And the sisters, yes, they were landed with the princess titles. They didn't choose them, but the problem has been, what precisely do they do? I mean, the balance as such is quite reasonable. They're both happily married, they've got families, they've both got jobs, and they both got quite a few charitable posts. And it's interesting that last year, Beatrice took on 3 charities and usually 2. One included a mentoring with the King's Foundation, and I think the King likes them, according to all reports. But the problem, of course, is naturally with the Epstein files, because they're mentioned quite a number of times in one way or another. One of the mentions that has garnered a lot of attention was this rather extraordinary Sarah Ferguson, as everyone realizes, grovels to Epstein, who pays for sums we don't know exactly, debts. No question about that. But the facts are that when Epstein was released from prison, just a few days out, and still under house arrest, Sarah Ferguson took 20-year-old Beatrice and 19-year-old Eugenie to have lunch, expenses paid, apparently. I mean, that sort of thing. I don't know who they thought they were meeting, but these mentions are most unhelpful. I mean, one thinks back, they lived pretty high when it came to holidays and parties and so forth in earlier times. And you do wonder also where perhaps all the money came from, or some of the money to fund the very extravagant holidays and lifestyles in former years. I mean, it's a question of finding a balance, because obviously mention in the files doesn't denote any wrongdoing. And of course, it's their parents. They must be shaken by some of what has come out, or all of what has come out. But to do an interview, it does remind me of the mistake Beatrice made, if you remember, when she actually advised, or reportedly advised,
yeah, she did,
with Newsnight.
Yeah, she was at the meeting when Andrew first met with one of my best friends, actually, Sam McAllister, and she was surprised to see Beatrice there, and Beatrice was one that said, yes, Daddy, this would be good for you, you should do it. She also advised her mother how to placate Epstein after Fergie called him a paedophile. And then she apologised and said, no, I'm really sorry. And so Beatrice, you know, probably not the best advice giver in the royal family. What can they do, though? Do they need to distance themselves from their parents' actions?
Well, I mean, obviously, they want to get as far away from their parents' reputation, because they haven't got one. I mean, Andrew's, of course, in disgrace, being investigated by several police forces, literally as we speak, according to reports. And as for Sarah Ferguson, I mean, she had never, well, I mean, not only is her particular charities, I mean, they distanced themselves as far as I know, and her particular or things closed down. I understand.
Yeah, she closed 6 businesses yesterday, I think, 6 of the 9, yeah.
I mean, this is not something you want to be identified with. The problem with these talk in the interviews, you know, you talk to people and you hope they understand you. And of course, Sarah Ferguson's done so much of that. You remember it's little Sarah who's the bad one, because I remember she said this on Oprah, you know, she creates another person if the person's naughty, because one remembers from the toe sucking to the fake shame. I mean, it's just, she was a disaster as a royal. She's still an utter disaster, and we know very well that, I mean, if only he'd married Koo Stark, this would never have happened.
I know, and at the time, that was just considered far too shocking. The thing is with these people is that I find that their lack of understanding at the anger from the public is almost breathtaking. I mean, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, to this day, is probably sitting there going, I don't know what all the fuss is about. And Fergie just announced last week that she was coming back to public life. I mean, we don't want her. You know, she said, I need to work, so I need to get back into public life. And she was begging Epstein for a job with him. I mean,
she wanted to marry Epstein. I mean, some of these comments, you know, like, you're like the brother I never had. Yeah. My supreme friend, can I marry? All of this toe-curling, grovelling nonsense.
Awful.
But of course, money was involved. That's the thing. There was a purpose to it. Epstein, apparently, in an email, said he paid 15 years he subsidised her, according to this report, because we only knew about the £15,000, which was actually a fact that he'd given her to pay off debts, and then she said she'd never be in touch with him again, and of course that was proven to be a lie. But it had taken years to unearth all this, so you're quite right. I mean, what on earth can they say? What on earth can they do? I would have thought, keep a low profile in the summer, a little humility, this business of a tell-all interview, but what do they tell? What if the next week the files produce something involving them?
Exactly that. Just where is the humility? I mean, I know they live in a rarefied world. I know that they probably don't come in touch with commoners like me. They certainly don't listen to programmes like this. They've got no idea what's going on in the real world. But the fact that they can think that they can somehow talk down to us, or to explain to us, or clear their name. I don't care what I don't need their names cleared. I want them to go away.
I think that it would be fair to state that they do a certain amount for charity, and from that point of view, I think the King has always taken a rather kindly view of them. But quite frankly, you know, people did say for years, what's the point of them? I mean, they were both given titles. They didn't choose to, of course, but they seemed pleased enough when they were going
to use them. Yeah.
Parties and all of this business with these endless holidays. Now, in 2015, I discovered in the Daily Mail report that Princess, I think it was, I better make sure, one of them had 17 holidays and the other 7 in that year. How about that? How about that as a lifestyle?
I mean, no wonder. And anyway, you're saying, well, that they do charity work. A lot of rich women do charity work, right? They're not working. They don't have jobs. They're married to rich men who have jobs. So a lot of them do charity work. And I don't need an explanation from them either. Just get on, do your charity work and shut up. Very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Here's what they're banking on, you see, that people are, one reason or another, we're all going to tune in to see what they say if they do a joint interview. I mean, this could be absolutely toe-curling. It could be ghastly. It could be, I won't be
another Andrew interview.
Oh, no, it couldn't be. We couldn't survive. I couldn't survive.
I mean, you'll have seen a lot of changes, Richard, in the royal family in your very short, young life, obviously. I mean, is this the closest that it's got to you to look like it's in danger? The House of Windsor could crumble.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, there have been comparisons with the abdication, which was very different because most people didn't know that it was coming until just before in England or in Britain. With Princess Diana and the aftermath, that was a very curious time, and people's responses were very uneven. People did grieve. Of course, the Queen was at Balmoral, and Tony Blair was able to take the temperature of the nation. But certainly I mean, the Burrell trial, very different. So it is unique, and there is this feeling about commentators. There's so much doom that's prophesied. I can't help feeling that the monarchy will pull through in some way and another. I mean, the latest poll YouGov gave it exactly the same 59%, which is quite interesting. But Andrew's down to 6%. I mean, you can't get much worse than that. I mean, it's just...
No. You don't want to.
It is so worrying because, of course, it involves such personal tragedy, and you've got the sort of global patriarchy with these extremely rich individuals who seem accountable to no one, and the victims, well, thousands perhaps of them.
Yeah.
Terrifying, really.
It really is. I'm completely in agreement with you on that. It just seems to be a mad world we're in at the moment. Richard, can we talk again at some point? I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Fitzwilliams, their royal commentator. Right, stay where you are, because coming up we're going to be looking at the newspapers for tomorrow, it being a Thursday. So stay where you are. Michael Quick will be in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight. Very difficult conversation, and also one that, like I said, I do spend a lot of time. My producer and I, we sit and talk, and we say, well, you know, what's the question? What question can we put on the screen to entice you to call, and to, you know, to really just to crystallise the topic and make it interesting. And I literally can't come up with a question for this. I think this is probably the first time in my phone-in career, which has expanded several decades, that I haven't been able to crystallise this topic into a question. But I still want to talk to you about it. And normally if I can't find a question, I think, oh, well, then it's not a phone-in. You know, that doesn't work. But this is just a story that is so perplexing and so disturbing that I think, what the hell is going on? What is happening in this world today that this is happening? Why is this happening? The National Crime Agency has come out with figures today that says 1,000 suspected paedophiles every single month is being arrested. They're saying that statistically that proves that in every community there is a paedophile, and in every single school in this country there's a victim. Let that sink in. We've got the Epstein files. We've got stories about celebrities. We've got Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Ian Watkins. It's across society. This is not just one group of people. This is across society. What the hell is going on? Why is this happening? And why aren't we angrier? Why is it appears that these mostly men, and in this country, mostly white men, what are they doing? Why is this? Why are they not even going to prison for a long? We spoke to a psychiatrist a moment ago who said that the recidivism rate, so the reoffending rate, is higher than anything else, than any other crime. So what the hell is going on? And that's why I can't form a question on this. I can't think of a way to encapsulate this topic into, well, what do we think about this? Because it is just so disturbing and so terrifying that this is happening, not just in this country, but globally. Epstein files, this global sex trafficking ring, where there are allegedly babies involved that were killed, and little girls used in snuff movies, and untold horrors on children by some of the richest and most powerful people in the globe. I don't understand. I cannot understand. But the fact that it is everywhere, these people are everywhere, and the victims are everywhere. I don't know why we're not angrier. I don't know why. It seems to be being normalised to such a degree that, as I said, on a fashion website, a lifelike child sex doll was for sale. The child that looked like a 3-year-old, described to potential buyers as being anatomically correct. There she is, if you're watching. Sold with a teddy bear. I don't have words for this. But look, these figures came out today, and I don't think it can be ignored. So forgive me for not having a question. I just want to talk to you about it. Why are we... Look at that little girl. That's a doll. That's a sex doll. It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. And I've seen some really bad stuff. That was being sold on Shein, where you probably get your cheap T-shirts from. Unbelievable. And yet, true. So, I do want to talk about this. I do want to have a conversation. I don't know what about. I don't know, like I said, the question. But I think we should be angrier about this. We should be more disturbed by this. This cannot become normal and normalised. It can't. It can't. So, I want you to give me a call. 0344 499 1000. The calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. And please send me a message as well, just so I don't feel... sometimes I feel like I'm on my own with this kind of stuff, right? It feels like I'm the only one that can see this, but I'm the only one that's angry about this. And I think that's probably why I want to talk to you about it, because I don't get it. Send me a message to 87222. So that's all coming up at midnight. But joining me now, rather difficult transition there, is Michael Crick, broadcaster and political journalist. Just very quickly to address that, these figures came out today, 1,000 suspected paedophiles being arrested every single month. And this has doubled in 3 years. Why are we not more angry about stuff like this? Why are we not more disturbed by images like that little sex doll?
Well, the image of the little sex doll is very disturbing, and we should be very upset about it. On the statistics, I mean, the statistics in a way might be good news, because it may well reflect the police cracking down on suspected paedophiles in a way that they didn't in the past. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean the amount of offending has gone up. It may mean that, and I'd like to know more about these statistics. And as to saying, well, that means there's a case in every school, and what was the phrase? A case in every school and a case in every community.
Statistically, that means, this is the NCA has said that statistically that means that there is a perpetrator in a paedophile in every community and a victim in every school.
I think that is statistical nonsense. And it may well mean on average there is one in every school and one in every community. But how can the statistics don't work like that? You can't say, so that means there's definitely a victim in every school and a perpetrator in every community.
But it crystallises...
You've got to be careful about statistics.
Yeah, but it does crystallise your mind into saying, look, this isn't somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
I think that's why they've released that statement, is to say, look, this could be an issue in your school, this could be an issue in your community, this isn't somewhere else.
Well, I mean, I'd make two more points. One is, it would be interesting to know how many of these 1,000 arrests lead to charges, lead to prosecutions and lead to convictions.
Well, here we go. I've got a single week here. In a single week, the UK made 252 arrests, including 118 people who were then charged, and another 35 people were sentenced in court, and 407 children had to be safeguarded.
Right. Well, I mean, those are pretty
They're
large,
horrendous numbers.
There are appalling figures. But I suspect, that those figures, that this is, well, the big my suspicion is that this is not an especially new problem. It may be, I don't know, but I suspect that there always was a lot of this, and it was not pursued, and people didn't want to know about it, and they didn't want to talk about it.
Well, look at Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, or people turned a blind eye, or, I mean, I think there was an element of people, almost joking about it, almost joking about relationships.
There was the paedophile exchange, information exchange,
Indeed.
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
And there were some quite heavyweight politicians involved with that.
Well, I think that was it's interesting. I remember that from the 1970s.
Yeah.
And there was a lot about it in the Guardian. Sorry,
it was known as Pi.
And run by a guy called Lemon, if I remember, Lennon or Lemon, and the paedophile information exchange was regarded as a respectable body by people you would regard as liberals, and it was almost as if paedophile rights were ranked alongside gay rights in that era.
Wow.
And of course homosexuality was then illegal, and and whereas gay rights have been hugely extended in 50 years, paedophile rights have not been, and quite rightly not been extended. And it was all, and it actually shows a certain mindset, I think, that people had in those days, that paedophilia and homosexuality were somehow linked. And of course they're not.
They're not.
But I think probably a lot of people in society, or most people, for instance, in those days, if you thought that a man was homosexual, people would, you make jokes about him and little boys.
Yes.
The connection was made.
There used to be that
utterly
connection.
unfairly.
Yeah.
Now there are some gay men that obviously some men attracted to little boys are going to be gay, but it doesn't follow the other way around. So there's lots of, you've got to think carefully about this and think calmly. But I think that a lot of the abuse that took place in private schools, in boarding schools, state schools as well, but more often in private schools because they stayed overnight. You had housemasters and there were more opportunities, and in the churches. I think there was a lot of it in those days, and more of a blind eye was turned. I mean, certainly in the churches, you turned a blind eye, and you didn't discipline or prosecute or report it to the police simply because it was hugely damaging to your church. I mean, look at the way, and it's not just a problem that's affected the Catholic Church, although it has been a particular problem there, but it's been a problem in other churches as well, that people put the lid on it, covered it up, because it would have been damaging to the reputations of those institutions. Now there's been a lot more cracking down on this, although we have still seen in communities, strongly Asian communities, where you've had the particularly where the areas where you've had the grooming gangs of Pakistani origins, where I think local councils, often Labour councils, although not always, and local council officials and local police forces have been very slow to respond. I think Liberals have come up with false analysis of statistics, and I think there's been an element of some people in politics not being willing to pursue these grooming gangs because they have depended on parts of the Asian community to get out the vote. And I think that has happened in some of those communities in northeast Manchester, where it's been, like Rochdale and Oldham, where it's been a problem, and other places too, Rotherham maybe. And so, but there's so much to understand more about this. Then you've got the whole problem of how do you cope with this? How do you cure it? And that is, and I don't know what I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, and I always I get those terms mixed up. But how do you cure it? Can you cure it? If you are attracted to sexual activity with children, are you likely to be that way inclined for the rest of your life?
Well, a lot of them don't think they're doing anything wrong. I mean, some will know that they've done wrong. I mean, certainly,
and they'll say things like, "Well, they enjoy it."
Yeah, exactly that.
So we're very undeveloped here. We're at very early stages of this, I think.
But we shouldn't
as a society. Right? I know, and that's partly the failings of the generations that have gone before. That there were people who knew that pretty awful things went on in schools and in scouts groups and other institutions, and they just sort of laughed about it, or they just sort of didn't really think through how serious it was.
Yeah, just part of growing up.
And of course, often you find that the abusers were themselves abused.
Yeah.
In other words, it was normalised for them as an activity, and it's a bit like bullies have been bullied, and abusers have been abused. And Yeah, I know. I mean, I understand your concern, but what we mustn't do is overreact, and you know.
But the trouble is, Michael, we've been underreacting.
We have been underreacting, but there have been
underreacting.
overreactions at times. You know, people have been attacked by
being
mobs.
paediatricians.
Yes, for being a paediatrician. People who don't understand that the two words mean totally different things.
Yeah, no, but I just think that that there's an unwillingness, it feels, to actually tackle this in any real proper way. You know, even with the grooming gangs, and they're not the only gangs. There are other gangs around the country, and these people are still operating. There are still gangs operating. There's still things going on, and there doesn't seem to be really a willingness to say this is completely unacceptable.
Certainly, there's been a big problem with political will.
Yeah, there really has.
At a local level in the many towns actually that have had a huge problem on this.
Yeah.
And I'd say to a lesser extent at the national level. I mean, you know, for instance, the Express tomorrow leads with a headline, a splash headline: Starmer does not care about victims of rape. And from one of the survivors of grooming gangs.
It's easy for them to say that.
I mean, I think that's going to. I mean, I think Starmer does care, but he just has an enormous amount on his
yeah,
agenda.
but we can't. You know, the rape and abuse of women and girls and boys. That's at the bottom of the list thing. It shouldn't be.
Well, it's down the list. I wouldn't say it's bottom of the list, but you know.
Is there anything more important than protecting vulnerable children? Really? I mean,
well, I'm not going to say. I think there are things that are certainly as equally important, like the world situation right now. You know, the threat to peace right now is, you know, and indeed another of the stories in the papers is that, you know, we now face the former defence chief saying that Britain now faces a 1936 moment, and 1936 they didn't have nuclear weapons. It was a threat from a dictatorial Nazi Germany. Well, now we face a serious threat from powers that do have nuclear weapons.
If we've got a peaceful country and we're still abusing children, I'm not sure what the peace is for. But anyway, let's take a quick break. Michael and I'll be back in just a moment where we'll start to go through the papers. So stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and with me in the studio to go through the papers is Michael Crick, a broadcaster and journalist. The Sun newspaper's gone for All the papers are odd, aren't they, at the moment, because it's half term. But victory for fans and landlords. Swig when you're winning. This is during the World Cup that 1 a.m. pub hours for more games. This will be good for the hospitality industry, won't it?
Well, it will and it won't be really. It will be if the hours are extended. Although it won't be, it may not be good news for hospitals and police forces having to deal with the outcome. But if pubs are going to have to be open, I haven't really looked at the World Cup schedule. Even though I'm a football fan, I don't really believe in the World Cup in America.
You're a Man United man, aren't you?
Indeed, I've just been to a youth cup game in Oxford tonight. But if there are games at that hour, are actually that many people going to be watching them? You'll have to be a pretty devoted fan to stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning if it's not one of the home countries.
Yeah,
you know,
or not have a job, presumably.
Yeah.
If you're going to stay.
Well, or maybe you work,
Maybe you work as a late
hours.
night phone-in host.
Yeah.
But then you miss the 1 o'clock. You miss that. But look, I think anything that's good for the country, if it increases the mood, and I seem to remember that during big football tournaments everybody seems a little bit more happy and engaged, and everybody becomes more
until England
British, yeah, and then we all become Scottish,
yes.
And then when the Scots
I suspect they'll lose before England.
Oh, don't say that. That'd get you into right loads of trouble.
Isn't that what you want?
Yeah. So Andrew, as well, the top on the flag actually, they've got a story as well, saying a former protection officer has been quizzed over Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's links to the sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. A Met detective spoke to him at the weekend, but they haven't spoken to Andrew yet. There is really only one question. What do you know? Or what did you know, and when did you know it? I guess that's the thing.
It seems extraordinary that it's taken so long.
Yeah.
I mean, this story about Andrew has been around for how long? I mean, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
And nobody thought to ask all the protection. I mean, how many protection officers did Andrew have? I mean, it must have been quite a few.
Must have been quite a few,
allowed for shifts.
And they must have been involved if he was bringing young women into the lodge.
Yeah.
They must have known about it.
But did they just think that these were his girlfriends and they were the right age, and and Andrew had checked their ages? And I suppose if you're a protection officer, you don't feel you can sort of say, "Excuse me, madam, how old are you?"
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
it's.
But nonetheless, it is very. So I mean, it's the last few days have been quite surprising about why nobody asked more questions in all sorts of places.
Exactly.
Not just about the appointment of Peter Mandelson and what did he know and when did he know it.
Willful ignorance.
And about planes at Stansted that Gordon Brown has been digging away at.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Gordon Brown seems to have returned to his old life as a journalist. And you would have thought that one of the first things the Met would have done when this story broke was to get on to the protection officers. But I said there's probably a certain omerta amongst the protection officers that they don't tell tales about the people they're protecting, because that then makes the job more difficult. Maybe it's something to do with that if Andrew thinks that the protection officers are spying on him, then he will become more secretive. I mean, it's not the first case in which this kind of thing has arisen. Anyway, an interesting development.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I mean, I think we're at the foothills of all of this with Epstein. Let's go to the Times, and they're again talking about the 8th force to join Epstein files investigation. So there's now it's 8. It was 7 yesterday. The National Crime Agency, after more allegations over the conduct of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's protection officers. So this is the same story, just a little bit more in depth on the front page of the Times.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is it 8 forces, and you think, well, isn't that a bit inefficient? And indeed, of course, the government right now is pledged to reduce the number of police force. I think there are 43 right
it down
now.
To 11 or something.
And it seems to me that if you're essentially dealing with, just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, why does it need 8 different police forces? Can't they all agree that one of them is going to do it, and any information that the others get, they obviously pass on to the one?
Well, my understanding was...
I mean, you can see them all falling over each other if it's not careful.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's the one police force looking at Stansted, there's another one, because it is another one looking at Gatwick. They've also said that police forces will become involved if more potential victims come forward. So I wonder if that is that they're local to where a victim has come forward. Well, so they might be investigating that angle.
Nonetheless, it does make the government's case, I think, that you need a beefed up national. I mean, you've already got the National Crime Agency, which deals with certain.
So we're going to get our own FBI. Aren't
well, that's what the government is effectively pledged to do, and you can see a lot of waste happening if you've got all these police courses pursuing the same thing, and the argument against a national FBI or a British equivalent of the FBI is that you reduce local accountability, and that has always been, we've always felt in this country, is an important part of the way that we're policed. But
we've had so many problems.
The whole investigation just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
and
it really does. And this one says an unnamed former senior Met protection officer said that Andrew's protection team travelled with him to the island, Epstein Island, at least twice.
Well, they'd have to, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So they might have seen something then, you know.
Yeah. I mean, they could, if he was to say, "Oh well, lads, you don't need to come with me. I'm just going to this, with my friend Mr. Epstein."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got to.
But then they need to be questioned about what they saw.
Yeah, of course. And but it should have happened ages ago.
Yeah, it should have done. Trump has now pulled his support for the Chagos Islands deal, only having given it last week. Didn't he say?
It was a few days ago.
A few days ago.
I know, it's extraordinary.
Didn't he sign something? And he agreed to it ages ago.
I know, and that was an astonishing story. And now he's going, well, maybe by next Monday he'll change back again. I mean, this is Trump all over, isn't it? He goes one way and then the other. And the Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, was asked whether the State Department, this declaration of US support for the deal on Tuesday should be taken as the gospel, or whether it's what the president has said on his social Truth Social media account, and she said Truth Social is the one that matters. So where does that leave the State Department then?
Yeah, well, it doesn't.
Does the State Department not matter anymore?
No.
You know, the most powerful foreign policy institution on the planet. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what Trump says on his
Truth Social.
The whole thing is a mess. But more seriously, I mean, I'm very worried about this deal because I think.
But didn't Labour? They didn't really have much choice but to give it back, did they? Hadn't licences run out and things were happening, and they.
Well, and there were international court hearings, but it's incredibly complicated, and now it's made more complicated still by the possibility of an American attack on Iran, for which Diego Garcia would be needed, and so I think that the whole deal is going to have to be scrapped, and we're going to have to renegotiate it, and because it's just been so difficult in Parliament and so difficult with the Americans, and it does have severe implications for our future defence and strategy and relations with China and America and so on.
Yeah, I mean, but I just wish he'd make a decision and kind of stick to it.
And we should also remember the Chagosians who were cleared out, and many of whom now live in this country, lots of them around Crawley of all places. Really? That's because it's near Gatwick Airport, apparently. And they want to go back. I mean, they were turfed out. I mean, they should be allowed back, in my view. They've been treated abominably by the Labour government of the 1960s. That's not a political point, because the Conservatives went along with it too.
Well, there will definitely be reparations that the taxpayer has to pay at some point. Let's have a look at The Guardian. Gaza death toll 25,000 higher than estimated. More than 75,000 people were killed in the first 16 months of the 2-year war in Gaza, at least 25,000 more than the death toll announced by local authorities at the time. Very difficult to keep up with.
It is, because the other day, the Israeli government admitted that what the Gazan, if I've got this right, I think what the Gazan Health Authority, controlled by Hamas, had said that the total was 70,000, and the Israeli government admitted for the first time that actually the health figures from the Hamas Health Authority were correct.
Were accurate,
but what this is suggesting is in actual fact that both of those are underestimates, because the figure that is published here is that 75,000 people were killed in the first 16 months of the war. In other words, from October 2003 round to about this time last year.
Yeah.
So in other words, the people killed in the last 12 months are not part of that. So you're going to be getting on for 100,000 people. In fact, there's a figure here that what is it? That around about where's the estimate is, as of 5th of January last year, 3 to 4% of the population of the Gaza Strip had been killed violently. 3 to 4% of the population killed in this war, and by almost entirely by attacks by the Israeli government.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just, well, he's got his board of peace tomorrow, hasn't he? Donald Trump, his first inaugural meeting of the...
Well, that's a farce. I mean,
the fact you have to pay to join.
Comprising all sorts of people who are utterly unpeaceful,
yes,
and for which you have to pay $1 billion to join.
Yeah, it is absolutely.
And the president of those board of peace is not the president of the United States; it's Donald Trump. In perpetuity until he dies, I presume.
Yeah.
Or maybe after he dies as well.
Possibly, if he's ever gonna die. Right, we've got to take another break, but we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And with me in the studio is Michael Quick, broadcaster and journalist. The Daily Mail, as you said, and I just wanted to look into this a little bit more, that Britain faces a 1936 moment. Now, look, the defence chiefs are warning the Prime Minister about this, and I am a little bit cynical about this, because there was some reporting that Rachel Reeves was going to block the extra money for defence spending, and people in defence like to say we need more. They always need more. They always need more. So do we believe this is really 1936 moment, or is there a little bit of, look, just give us the money, the 3% that we need by the end of this term?
Well, I agree with you. Your point. I mean, so long as I've been a journalist, 45, nearly 50 years now, there's been certain groups that have said the same things. Farmers have always complained that their things are terrible.
We're going to run out of food.
And defence chiefs always, and that's part of the job of a defence chief to complain.
Yeah.
But right now we've seen there is the first time. Russia is at war with another European. First time since the Second World War, Russia is at war with a European country. Astonishingly, Ukraine has held out now for 4 years.
4 years next week, isn't it?
And we have got
amazing
threats to Poland, the Baltic states. NATO is weaker than it's ever been because Trump has seeming to renege on the commitment to the defence of Europe, and we are exposed, West European countries, most of Europe actually, as having very weak forces right now after decades in which we've become dependent on the Americans. And I think it's quite right that our defence spending should be put up to 5% as soon as possible. And that is going to require some pretty drastic sacrifices. However, having said that, look, we mustn't get too terrified of the Russian threat. After all, they've been fighting the Ukrainians for 4 years now and have still not won. Have still not beaten them. Do you remember when they first invaded Ukraine?
They thought it would take days, weeks.
4 years ago, and it looked like they were going to take Kiev in a matter of days, and they didn't. But thanks to brilliant work by the Ukrainians, helped by this country and many other countries in Europe and the Americans, they've held out. So is it a 1936 moment? Yes and no. But I mean, as the other point I made earlier, that the Russians are a lot more dangerous than the Germans were in 1936, because ultimately they have nuclear weapons which can destroy us all. So the only way to stand up to the Russians is to have formidable defences, and we don't have formidable defences right now. And so therefore, and the thing is, Starmer said in Munich the other day that we've all got to spend more, but Britain's commitments are very, very slow, and we're currently spending 2.4%.
Which is about 60 to 66 billion a year.
Thank you. That will go up to 2.5% by this time next year, April 27, 3% by about the 2029 or
3% is an extra 17.5 billion.
I know, these are big sums.
Yeah.
And we are going to have to do things like think about getting rid of the triple lock on pensions, for example. We're going to have to really get to grips with our welfare budget. And I know this is drastic, and I know that people are going to suffer, and maybe, people who are better off, like, frankly, I am, are going to have to pay more. But it really is serious that all of us in Europe stand up to Russia, quite apart from the other problems we face with China. So I think we should be listening to the defence chiefs there. They're former defence chiefs, because they can speak out more openly than the current ones, but I'm sure the current ones would say the same thing.
Yeah, they've all been. I've knocking around defence for quite a long time in my career, and they've read far too many defence papers and white papers. But yeah, they've always claimed it. But maybe they are right this time, and it is time that we started paying our part. I think that's the one thing that Donald Trump did get absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and it's absurd, really, that successive American administrations haven't come knocking on our door saying, actually, you ought to be contributing more, you know. But apparently it's because they didn't actually want us to contribute more. Maybe they liked to be in. Maybe the Americans in the past, previous Americans,
to be the
liked
police.
to be the ones who were in charge, and because they were contributing a lot more, they could, run the show.
Yeah. I mean, I read an article the other day that suggested exactly that. Actually, that Americans didn't want everybody else to raise their budget. Let's have a look at the Mirror. Tony Martin's 2.5 million gift to pub landlady. This is the farmer, Tony Martin, who shot somebody who came into his house, wasn't he? The killer farmer, Tony Martin, has left his £2.5 million fortune to a pub boss who helped him after his release from prison. Well, there you go.
Well, I'm not sure what there is to say about that.
No.
I think that's the fact that is the splash in the Mirror rather reflects the fact there aren't that many other stories around. Unless I'm missing something here, Petrie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see that is... Obviously, somebody's just gone through the will, haven't they, and that are public.
Yeah.
So that they've seen that.
You get a lot of stories in wills if you're willing to...
If you're willing
in fact, they're
to
a very
go
good
through
source
them.
for journalists of
Yes,
wills.
I know.
Because everybody's
They're all
will is
public.
published, apart from the royal family.
Yeah. Funny that.
And there are those who are arguing that that should change.
Yeah, well, it should really. The Daily Telegraph. Let's have a look at. Okay, this is ex-army chiefs. Number 10 is dishonest on defence and do not give away the Chagos. Trump tells Starmer today. This time, NHS hip operations cancelled for months. Tens of thousands of knee and hip replacements will be cancelled across the UK because of global shortage of bone cement.
Yeah.
Of all the things, of all the reasons, I thought they were going to say because there's not enough room or there's a waiting list or whatever, but the critical ingredient which locks replacements into place is used in most of the 250,000 operations that are carried out each year. But one of the world's major suppliers has suffered a critical machine failure in its main production site in Germany.
Well,
wowza.
I'd never even realised there was... I mean, I suppose if I'd thought about it, I would have realised there
Yeah,
must
I
be
would've-
something like that. I mean, I just sort of felt that, well, bones came together and somehow they locked together and here. But anyway,
But there'll be
you would have
lots-
thought...
Yeah, of all the things.
But you would have thought that an institution like the NHS would have more than one supplier.
You would hope.
You know,
Yeah.
and just in case that something like this does happen. But that maybe is expecting too much of the NHS. But it's going to be, you know, terrible news for the poor people living in agony
because
over
living in pain. I mean,
Yeah.
there's one of my best mates, Tina. She had a hip operation really young. Actually, I think she was in her 40s. And she was in absolute agony before she got that, and she had to have both of them done. And absolute terrible pain, and she said it was life-changing. It was completely, it's one of those operations that is completely and utterly life-changing almost immediately to be out of pain. So my sympathies really are with those who've now been told that it's been cancelled or been postponed because there's not enough cement. Can they
Yeah.
not use something else, like super glue?
I think that would be...
I once had my head stitched together with super glue. So
Really?
I
But-
know that would, because it was
but-
invented for battlefields, super glue.
Was it?
To stick skin together on the battlefield, yeah. That's
But,
what,
but
it's original
presumably the
invention.
good thing about bone cement is if the operation goes wrong, you can uncement it, can you? I don't know. Maybe with super glue, it's harder to
Yeah, well, we all know
undo
that
it
from
if it's
getting
gone
stuck
wrong.
to a mug, don't
Yeah,
we? While we've been
or worse.
trying to fix
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The I-paper for tomorrow, Epstein trafficking police in plea for witnesses as Met examines Andrew's bodyguard claims. So they want people to come forward. And this one, Nigel Havers says that Margaret Thatcher was very attractive. She
Oh,
had a-
sorry, these are two separate stories.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
well,
we've done it. We've talked about the
Yes.
Epstein thing.
Yeah, no,
so
well-
Nigel
well-
Havers is saying Thatcher was very attractive.
Yes, I mean, I never really had many dealings with Margaret Thatcher. And when I did, it was when she was older. But I think a lot of men found her attractive. Now, the attraction, was it a combination of the
Sort of
way she
Madame
looked
Whiplash.
and the, well, it may be, and the fact that she was a powerful woman? In other words, did she become less attractive when she, in the eyes of people like Nigel Havers? And of course, his father was her Attorney General.
Of course,
Sir Michael
yeah.
Havers. Did she become less attractive once she stopped being Prime Minister and stopped having power?
power,
But she
yeah.
did have that. I mean, I must say she didn't really do it for me. But maybe if I'd known her in her when she was in her 20s or
Yeah,
something.
maybe.
Yeah.
With a right northern voice.
But the police appealing for witnesses, that is always a tricky one.
Yeah.
Because I remember about 10 years ago, the police went to Edward Heath. There were suspicions about Edward Heath and sexual abuse against boys. And the police, I mean, going to a press conference in Salisbury, outside, I mean, Heath, this was 10 years after his death, outside his house, opposite the cathedral, a place called Arundel's. And I was astonished as this senior policeman from the Wiltshire Police announced that they were appealing for witnesses to come forward with any evidence they had about Edward Heath and things that he'd done. And of course, as a result of that, they inevitably got people who were just, you know, making it up, causing aggro, and you've then got the problem of just, you know, going through all of these cases and trying to work out which ones are serious and credible and which ones aren't. And the Wiltshire Police later admitted that that was a serious error to do it, and also to do it in such a public way, which is not what's happened here. But nonetheless, it can cause problems. But I mean, what else do you do? I mean, not to appeal for witnesses would be an even bigger problem.
Yeah, so, and there must, you know, the fact that all of these people have got away with it in the Epstein files so far. You know, the only person in prison is Ghislaine, and she should be, is Ghislaine Maxwell, but it's just the one woman. And there are witnesses. People know stuff, and they must come forward.
Yeah, I mean, the problem you have there, of course, is that most of the witnesses will be Americans. And so it's up, you know, in theory, it's up to them. And to what extent...
It shouldn't be, because
to what extent will there be... can we rely on the American justice system?
I don't think we can on this one.
Particularly under this regime.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
And indeed, when one of the witnesses, it may well be, and maybe even stronger than that, is perhaps probably one of the witnesses is the President of the United States. Yeah. You know, he spent a lot of time
He must
with
have
Epstein.
seen something. Even, you know, he must have seen something.
Or worse.
Or worse.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right, another break, and then we'll be right back.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hang on, we're coming back. Hello there, it's Petrie with you, and with me is Michael Crick, broadcaster and journalist, going through the papers for tomorrow, the 19th of February, Thursday the 19th of February. The Daily Express, again, grooming gang survivor Ellie Reynolds says her Prime Minister meeting request has been ignored, proof that Starmer does not care about the victims of rape. That's how she feels, and I guess if you feel ignored, that is how you're going to feel. So that's Ellie Reynolds there. Hopefully Keir Starmer will respond to a request for a meeting at some point. And then at the top, reforms promised to defuse the benefits bomb bankrupting the UK. This is Robert Jenrick's inaugural speech as Shadow Chancellor, as he's calling himself, I believe. What did you make of it?
Well, he's only been Shadow Chancellor
for a day.
For a day, and already the tensions between him and Farage have emerged. Farage comes out yesterday, announces his shadow cabinet of 4 names or 5 names, I can't remember how many, which is nothing like the number that you need in a cabinet.
Yeah.
And the idea is to show the world that reform is not a one-man band, which up until now it certainly has been. So what happens is that Robert Jenrick, the new Shadow Chancellor, is saying that we'll stick with the triple lock on pensions, whereby they go up by rise in prices or rise in earnings or 2.5% state pensions. And Farage is saying, actually, we're going to have to think. I'm not sure about that. So there are differences between them already on that issue. Hugely important issue. In my view, we're spending far too much money on state pensions, many of which are for people who don't really need them. In other words, many of them are for people who, much of this rise is going to people who already get decent incomes from their own private pensions or employers' pensions. And I think that commitment, whereby they go up and up and up, and they go up much more than people's earnings and inflation, simply because they go up to whichever that is at the highest of these 3 things. So it
definitely needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and it's all part of the way which I think. I say this as somebody of 67 who's in receipt of a state pension. I do think the system is a bit too skewed in favour of older people right now, and I think the reason that's come about is because older people vote in elections and young people don't.
Well, you say that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, I think it was his birthday today or tomorrow, 60, he's going to be at pension age and he's entitled to £7,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Do you think he'll take it?
Is it only that much?
Yeah, because he's probably not paid stamp, has he?
I see, right.
So he'll be on the lower bracket.
Well, I think right now he probably will have to take it, won't he? I'm not sure. His finances must be in a right mess right now.
Well, that's lunch for him, though, isn't it?
Well, it would have been. It would have been. But, what about all his legal bills, and which are going to be...
Well, Charlie will pay for those.
Well, will he?
Yeah.
I think there's a limit to how much... Charlie, as you call him, is going to be willing to cough up, and his mother's no longer around.
Oh, so it's sorry, when is it? It's tomorrow then? In 5 minutes. He'll be able to claim his pension.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, it's in terms of the diffusing the benefits bomb bankrupting you. Yeah, welfare is going up and up and up, and this government knew that it had to do something about it, but the backbenchers would not go along with it. And although I'm a great believer in benefits and for people who in need and for unemployed people and people who are living below the poverty line and all of that and child benefit, I do think that we just cannot carry on like the way we are, especially with everybody living longer.
Yeah, no, it is an absolute nightmare. But I wonder if now that we're starting to hear more about what reform would do, it's sounding a bit like everybody else, and that actually, you know, people are sitting there going, well, hang on a minute, they're going to cut benefits.
Yeah.
You know, potential voters who are going, oh, that's
well,
not
the problem they have, of course, is that traditionally Farage and his various parties that he's led have been sort of Thatcherite, really, in their approach. But in the 2 years since he came back and took over reform, he's been quite socialistic, quite left-wing in a lot of policies, and he's opposed this government on benefit cuts. And this is to appeal, of course, to those people in the red wall seats, people, working class people. You know, originally Farage's parties were retired colonels living in Surrey. That was his the people he was going for 25 years ago. Now it's a much wider constituency, much more working class, much more the people who voted for Brexit, and appeal, you know, and trying to win away the Labour vote to add to those disaffected Conservatives, and there's a tension there, and you can't satisfy, you can't make that balance between the Thatcherite philosophy and the almost socialist philosophy.
Yeah, the poorer north, though, where, you know, living wages are lower and top-up benefits are there and things like that, you know, he's going to stumble into some problems, I would have thought, the more policies that we see, and the more that you know, Jenrick is a Tory. He was, you know, a couple of weeks ago,
they all are.
And they all are.
Indeed.
Suella Braverman.
And Farage, as a film on Channel 4 News last night was reminded, tried to become a Conservative for a safe seat 21 years ago. Yeah. And of course, you're seeing that problem in the the decision that the courts, basically the government withdrew its plans to scrap local elections. Which means that Reform are going to win a lot more, almost certainly going to win a lot more seats in May's elections, and they're going to take over the running of councils. That is not necessarily good news for Reform,
and I think he
not
knows
necessarily bad news for the government, because actually the way in which Reform has been running the county councils that it took over last May has been pretty bad. A lot of defective people resigning, leaving the party. They promised to cut council tax, and in nearly every case, it's gone up. They promised to find lots of areas to cut spending. They've really struggled because they didn't realise that actually these councils had already cut spending.
And that's the thing.
And the more you see Reform in action, the more you see how unrealistic so many of their promises are. And we can't have another government coming to power that makes unrealistic promises, which is essentially what Labour did.
Well, that's what they all do, I think. Michael Crick, we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Stay where you are, because it's over to you next with Talkback.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good morning to you, and I would wish Andrew Mountbatten a happy birthday, but I don't care, so don't have a happy birthday. That's by the by. Look, this is a really tough conversation, and it really is. I find it really difficult because, like I said, I've said this a couple of times now, that if you've just joined, normally when you sit and work out what's going to be your phone in, right, there is a process, right? There's a process that we go through, and I will sit there and I'll go, right, I think that's a good story, that'll get a good, that'll be interesting, it'll get some good stories, we'll have some good, conversations, and I always then come up with a crystallizing question or two, right? So that we all know we're on the same page, so that we all know that what the conversation is, right? So it's just a little pointer, a little way of making you think about what I'm asking you a direct question, therefore you might think about what your answer might be, and all of those things. So there is a process to it. It's not just, I don't just walk in here and go, right, we're talking about this, right? And I sit down and I think about it. And often when there's a really good topic, sometimes the really good topics don't make good phone-ins. Right? They just don't, for some reason, because you can't think of the conversation, how the conversation will go. And I've been doing this a really long time. So normally, if I can't think of a question, I think, well, that's a shame, because that's a really interesting topic, but I don't know how I can make this work. I don't know how I can get the conversation going. This is one of those occasions, and I think this is the only time, actually, in my very long phone-in career, that I've come to you without a question, because I simply can't think of one. I literally can't. But this topic is so important that I just want to talk about it, and I hope you want to talk about it too. And it really is as simple as that. And that is, it's not a case of me having these big bold questions that I'm going to ask you. The story is that police today, the National Crime Agency came out with figures saying that they're arresting 1,000 suspected paedophiles in this country every single month. 1,000. And they go on to say, statistically, that means there's an offender in every community and a victim in every school in the country. Now, it may be that there aren't in one school, but there's 3 in another school. But it crystallises the mind, right? And tied with that, there was another disturbing story that I mentioned earlier on. And that is the online fashion. I know it as a sort of fast fashion chain. I mean, they obviously sell other things. It's called Shein. Was advertising a realistic, anatomically correct child sex doll. A little girl, probably 3 years old. Now, they've since taken it off their website, just so you know. It was reported to the French authorities. French authorities got in touch with them and said, what the hell is this? They likened it to child sexual abuse images, which, even though it's a doll, you can see where they were going with that. There's now a big inquiry into how that ended up. Well, how the hell was it even made? First question. But it was being sold. Just some fashion website. A little girl, sex doll. What the hell? I just don't know what's happening in the world. For those of you watching television, there's the little girl. Sold with a teddy bear. Little cuddly teddy bear. I just find it so horrific. So horrific And if you read the details underneath the seller, how the seller was selling this sex doll, it's so disturbing. So talking about genitalia, talking about this little doll, not a doll, it's a sex toy, it's a sex doll that men are buying to have sex with. That. If you're listening on radio, I urge you to look this up tomorrow, when you can, when it's safe to do so, because you will be shocked. You will be absolutely shocked. I was absolutely shocked to my core. And I've seen some really bad stuff in my life, and that has got to be one of the most offensive things I've ever seen. And people buy these. People pay 20 quid to have somebody on the dark web torture little girls and little boys. People download, upload pictures and of sex abuse images, and it goes right across society. We know only too well about the rape gangs, right? The rape gangs who are getting away with it for whatever political reason. The faces of these paedophiles, and they are everywhere. Everywhere. At the same time as this was going on, up north, Oxford had a rape gang. They're everywhere, and they still are everywhere. Why aren't we angrier about this? Why is this sort of become acceptable? In a way acceptable? That you have famous people going to court having observed abuse images, and they don't even go to prison. They don't even go to prison. Why? I guess I just can't, I literally just can't believe this. I've got a clip I want to play for you, though. This is the European Commission has now got involved with this Shein story. The European Commission, this is Thomas Reynier, launched and talking about them launching a special investigation into Shein over these child sex dolls. Just have a quick listen to this.
Is launching a formal investigation into Shein under the Digital Services Act. We suspect that the company has breached the DSA in 3 areas. First one, a highly addictive design for our consumers in the EU with rewards programs and a gamification of the service. Second, a lack of transparency on recommender systems. Third, the sale of illegal products online. This includes weapons, and this includes child sexual abuse material such as childlike sex dolls. We will now conduct an in-depth investigation, and we invite the company to cooperate throughout the process.
Like I said, Shein has cooperated in removing this seller from their website. But how the hell did it get on there in the first place? And look, I know that I'm really angry about this, right? I know, but I just don't want to feel alone with this, I think. I think that's why I needed to talk to you this morning, because when you see figures like that and you see numbers like that, you just think, am I the only one that is angry about it? Am I the only one that thinks this is the most appalling thing that I've ever, that I can imagine? You know, what's the point in us pretending to be a civilized society if we're not protecting children? You know, what's the point in increasing defence spending? What are we defending if that goes on like that in our country all the time? What the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing? How dare we rise up, put our heads up and say, well, this is Great Britain. We're amazing, we're great, when that's going on. And look, I know there's very little chance of this happening, but I'm going to appeal to a paedophile to call me, because you tell each other and yourself that this is somehow normal, that fancying children, wanting to have sex with children is normal, that you can't help it, that it's just the way you are, that it's normal to want to do that. So if you believe it's normal, call me. We're not a reporting authority. Call me. Explain to me how it's normal, why it's normal to want. You may never have attacked a child, right? You may be a paedophile who has never taken it outside your living room. You're still responsible for the abuse of little children, though, by the way, if you're viewing any images. But explain to me how you've managed to tell yourself that it's normal. If it is normal, if you believe it's normal, you have got nothing to worry about, have you? If you truly believe that what you're doing is fine, call me and tell me why it's fine, right? I think that's fair. It's reasonable. Justify it. I'll listen. I promise you, I will listen. But you know you've told yourself that this is normal. So tell me. You can change your name, change where you live. I don't care. Call me. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Right, let's get to your calls now. And John is a first-time caller from Spain. Good morning, John. I will do. No, it rings a small bell. Oh, of course, yeah. Mm. That's shocking, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember, yes, and I remember John Whiting. I can't remember if they're the, yeah. That's what's so depressing, isn't it?
He then got released after 2 years. Well, while he was on license, where he's got to go to the probation officer, while he was on probation, he killed the little girl. When it was turned out that he got released early, what the prison service said, well, he responded well to the courses. That was their reply. Well, the thing is, the reason Sarah Payne is dead is because he was released early. If he'd have been kept for 2 years, 8 months, he would have killed someone else. Really, the 4-year prison sentence was absurd.
It's just, I mean, this is the thing. It's not just that these creatures are out there. It's that for some reason the justice system has allowed there to be very light sentences for this. I mean, you'd almost think it was deliberate. That there's, you know,
I'm going to tell you something about our police system, right? Now, everything I've told you, you'll only get the truth from me. I won't tell you one lie, and I'm going to condense this. I touched someone with my little finger and warned him if he did that again, and I touched him with my finger. You know that's classed as assault, don't you? Right. So anyway, this person rung up the Kent police, and there was no fight or anything, but I was very verbal and very angry with what he did. And anyway, I'm driving around to see someone. This was in Dover. This happened in Sandwich in Kent. And someone said, "What about the Kent police here looking for you?" And I'm thinking, looking for me? From, you know, I thought, okay, it's ridiculous. I just thought. Well, then I've got a phone call about 3 days later on my mobile phone. It was on Saturday, and it was the Kent police. They said, "Mr. Webb, we need to speak to you." So I said, "Okay. I'll meet you in half an hour at the Bell Hotel at Sandwich." It's a lovely hotel. I walked into the hotel. He got up. There's a policeman there. This is why they don't. This is why people aren't in prison. He arrested me, put handcuffs on me, said, "I'm arresting you," blah blah blah. He then took me. This is Saturday about 6 o'clock to the Dover police station, and it was shut on a Saturday evening. He didn't know it was shut. He still had to take me to Folkestone. To cut a long story short, he fingerprinted me, DNA'd me. The two of them spent the whole shift on me touching someone with a finger. And because I was leaving for Spain the next day, he's then changed the charge that if I pushed him, and signed I pushed him, I'll be bound over to keep the peace for a year and I can go. So they kept me that whole shift of touching someone with a finger. Now, can you believe that?
I mean, it is ludicrous, and yet there are...
I'm going to tell you something 10 times more ludicrous, Petrie. I rang up the same police force, and I said to the lady, "I'd like to speak to a detective." Can the people listen to what I'm saying, by the way, or do they get this later?
No, they're listening now. It's live.
Oh, right. All right. So I'm going to laugh at this one. I rang up the same police force from the same hotel. And I said, "I'd like to speak to a detective." She said, "What's it about, sir?" I said, "Well, it's about a woman that's been murdered." So she said, "Could I have her name?" I said, "Yes." I told her her name. Said, "Date of birth." I said, I don't know her date of birth. I said, I've never met the woman. Oh, we must have a date of birth, sir. I said, well, I haven't got a date of birth. So then she asked me where the murder happened. I told her, and it was in Spain. She said, we're the Kent police. It's nothing to do with us. So I said, well, I know you're the Kent police. And the man who's killed us an Englishman, and the woman that's dead is from Scotland. From Scotland? She said, it's definitely nothing to do with us. So I said, look, I've had enough of this conversation. Bearing in mind, I'm arrested for a finger. And now we're on a murder, right? I said, I've had enough of this conversation. So I said, you got my phone number. I'm expecting, and I gave them my address where I lived. So I had a house there. Anyway, my daughter lived in. Actually, the house was in Essex. So I gave them my Essex address. Anyway, I hear nothing. 6 weeks later, my daughter rings up. Dad, I've had the police here about the woman that was murdered. I've given them your telephone number. Is that all right? I said, of course it is. Never heard. So, now I've never heard. I then...
John, we're coming up to a break, so you're going to have to speed it up a bit.
Well, this gets even worse. I then, about 18 months later, go into Canterbury, and I want to speak to a detective because I want to get this. I think this is wrong. This is a woman that's been killed. Later, when we're off the air, I'll tell you the woman's name. I don't want it on the air. Anyway, I go into Canterbury, said I want to speak to a detective. They said, we've got no detectives here. I said, what? They said, the nearest detective is in Margate. So it's on my way home. So I goes to Margate. Basically, I saw a detective. They said, well, that's someone from Scotland. It's nothing to do with us. We'll get in touch with the Scottish police and they'll probably contact you. Never heard.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but this is why. I mean, I guess the illustration of that is that the police are too busy fannying about to catch paedophiles properly and put them away. Thank you very much indeed, John. Enjoy Spain. I've got to take a break. I'm so late, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you with Talkback, and that's exactly what you're doing, and thank you, because I sometimes feel like I'm just shouting into the wind. You know, when you get it into your head that something is so bad and so wrong and nobody else seems to really be that angry with you. You think, is it me? But this is I just think it's just devastating for us. What is this country if we can't protect children? I mean, seriously. And protect children from grown men who think it's okay to have sex with them. To think that they wanted it. To think that a 3-year-old is flirting with them. I mean, it's a sickness, but it's not a sickness that we need to tolerate. I showed a picture earlier, we'll keep showing it through the hour, of the doll that just shook me to my core, the sex doll that was being sold. And Elaine has said that doll is absolutely vulgar and disgusting. It's a lack of respect, disregard and devoid of all sense of any and all normal human nature. it has certainly opened my eyes. I literally can't believe it. I'm appalled to the core. Alison, thank you, because that's exactly how I felt. I just felt sickened by that image of that doll with the little teddy bear. There's a sex doll. A sex doll. Deborah said, my first time contacting talkTV. Well, thank you for doing so. I want to say well done for addressing the grotesque paedophile disease that is increasing at a terrifying rate in England. It's beyond belief that Shein was selling a child doll for paedophiles. People should boycott them. They have removed it. But there's a big inquiry now. I'm going to complain to their CEO. I think you should anyway, so they don't ever do it again. The biggest problem of all in this country is the public school boys that are crawling all over the establishment using their power to normalise paedophilia, and the judiciary do not give appropriate sentencing of paedophiles. I agree with that. They don't give appropriate sentencing, and you have to think, well, is it because they're complicit? Is it because they don't get it? Is it because they don't think it's that bad? I mean, you've got to wonder, because it feels deliberate, right? Right? Let's go to your calls. Steve is in Perth. Good morning, Steve. I trust that's not the Australian Perth.
No, it's
the Scottish one.
Yeah. Scottish, yeah.
I just had to check. We do get calls from Australia. The Scottish Perth. Steve, what do you think of this? I mean, I literally can't believe it.
Well, it's quite sad, actually. It was to do with my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll be 70 in May, so she died a couple of years ago. Very sort of distressed lady, an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. But the story kind of goes back away when she was just a teenager, 13 or whatever. She loved swimming, and she was always a troubled wee soul. But she wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, so she trained at our local bath, getting up at 5 a.m., and then going on to school. God, it's quite difficult to explain. She's not here anymore. She'd probably be black affronted that I'm actually talking about her now. But I was also a competitive sports guy and played international volleyball for Scotland. And as fit as I thought I was, my sister had shoulders like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyway, one day she just said she was giving it up. She didn't want to swim anymore. And it was never actually explained to me. For 30 odd years later, I found out. But she said she was giving it up, quitting it, and she gave it up. And I couldn't believe it, because she was amazing. Anyway, we were brother and sister, not great together sometimes, but we loved each other. But she was a bit of a rebel. She was always falling out with my dad. Anyway, when she left high school, she went to France, allegedly fruit picking for 2 years. And then she got a job as a lifesaver when she came back at the Commonwealth Pool in Edinburgh. And she actually married her boss. And that was he was a contriving, I've written down here, B.A. that bastard, but he was a very misogynic man. Anyway, she got alcoholic. She had 3 kids with him, and he sort of paid the mortgage, and she had to pay all the money for the kids' upkeep, etc. This might be a bit waffly, but it's all true. And when she came back, initially, my dad, who was a general manager of a cash and carry group, gave her a job. The fireworks never changed. And eventually got the job as a lifesaver and married her boss, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, she became an alcoholic. And I was down in London for 30 years, and I didn't know much about her, because we kept in touch with her. But when I came back up, it turned out eventually she told me the truth. Her coach at the baths was interfering with her, and she told my mum and dad, and they didn't believe her. They told her she was lying, and it was just an excuse to to give it up, right? Anyway, she buggered off again, and she got her own flat and stuff like that. And then when I came back up for a hip operation, which I couldn't get in London because allegedly I was too young, we went for a coffee one morning, and she told me not just about her boss, I'm not going to say his name, and just about did. But it turned out my grandfather and my dad's oldest brother was interfering with her as well.
Oh, God.
And she had told my parents about it, and they poo-pooed it and says, no, they didn't believe her. So my point is, really, my dad was a bully. He was all about family, and we all had to be great, and we had to be clever. We had to be like well behaved and church on Sunday and stuff like that. But they never believed her
because they didn't want to. They didn't want to upset. They didn't want people talking about them.
It's all about family, isn't it, Petra? It's all about family. You don't want to disgrace your family.
But the disgrace is on the abuser, right? Not on the victim. I mean, this is. I agree with you that I think a lot of people do keep this kind of thing quiet because it's embarrassing, or it's, you know. But you're right. Families and communities are complicit in this. They are complicit because they don't listen to the victims because of shame. It's like people used to be ashamed of having cancer. Right? They used to think it was a shameful thing to have cancer or mental health issues. It was shameful. And victims feeling ashamed when the perpetrators are the ones that should be ashamed, and they should be shamed by those families and those communities. Steve, thank you very much indeed for that. That's a difficult thing. I mean, your poor sister, no wonder she became an alcoholic. I mean, no wonder, right? Her life ruined by a sexual predator. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good morning to you. It's good to see so many of you getting in touch on this, because it just makes me feel better. I've got a voice note here that I want to play for you. This is Wayne called in early, and he left this voice note. This is Wayne in Birmingham.
Evening, Petrie. This paedophilia is just the lowest of the low. And if you look, it's always the top brass that are involved in it. Always the people that can't be touched. It's no good. It's killing society. Judges are letting people off. They're giving people nothing sentences. Why are we even allowing this nonsense? Can somebody please help me make sense of the world? People like this should be locked up for life, never ever given parole. What a society that we're living in. I can't believe where we are.
I completely agree with you, Wayne. And that's exactly how I feel as well. What are we doing? What is it for? What is this country for? You know, we've got a great NHS, we've got a terrific benefit system, we've got all these things, and we pat ourselves on the back 6th richest country in the world, great, fabulous. But we're raping our kids. Right, okay. So what is it for? If we can't protect children, what is this country for? If we can't keep children safe from sexual predators, people who want to have sex with children. I mean, even just saying that makes my head spin. If we can't do that, then we might as well give up. We're lost. As Wayne said, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Why isn't this the top priority of everybody? Oh, we've got bigger fish to fry. We've got to sort this. We've got to defend the country. Have we? Well, what are we defending it for, if that's what is going on? I mean, what you do is you defend a decent society. You defend a society worth fighting for. You defend a society that is good. Well, that's not worth defending. If that's going on, and the numbers now are becoming clearer and clearer. I just want to read this to you. This is from Joanna. It says, many years ago, my daughter's friend used to work as a civilian in a police station. She saw a credit card scandal list of people accessing child porn online, child sex abuse images. She was shocked about how many people in her friendship group were on that list. Wiltshire 20 years ago used to be the worst area in the country for abused children at 1 in 10. That is an average of 3 children in every average school class. 3 children in every average school class. It also used to be that only 1 in every 95 child abuse accusations reported ever went to court. Of that 1 in 95, only 1 in every 100 were found guilty. It's not that they didn't do anything, it's that it couldn't be proved for lack of evidence or they had good lawyers. Few children would ever report that kind of crime without it actually happening. And it's just that these people involved are clever and get away with it. And that's from Joanna in Salisbury. Kevin is in Leicester. Good morning, Kevin. It's a tough one, isn't it, this? Really?
But your guest Mike, who you were talking to, made a very good point, which he took one of my answers away, which it could be that it's always been like this, and the police have just got better at realising it, or it's just become more common or somehow more known. It could have always been like this.
That's even worse, right?
Well, definitely. Well, kind of. It's as bad in a way, but it means our police have either got better or they're ignoring less. But when they're paying attention to people's tweets nowadays, I don't imagine how they've got better. I don't understand that. But it was something Mike mentioned, and it's something I was going to say. I'm just going to run I've got a few things. I'm going to run these by you and see what you think. When I was a child, no one had ADHD, Asperger's, or anything like that. And now everyone's got that. So I thought, what is it? Something we're all eating? Is it E-numbers in our food? Why are more people into kids? I don't understand that.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand that. I've just run another thing through you. I actually know a paedophile. I have to see him fairly regular, and you would never know he's a paedophile, just a normal bloke. But he works at a distribution centre I deliver to. He was on one of them YouTube videos. He got caught. He got done, but he's been out, and now he's got the same job, and I have to talk to him because I have to book in and book out, and you just wouldn't know. But we all know what he's like.
I mean, my God, that is just awful, isn't it?
It It is. I just think, because I've got a 10-year-old.
And is he just wandering around like nothing's happened? That's how you found out he was a paedophile, because he was caught on one of those videos?
Yeah, them like vigilantes.
Yeah. I'm a bit obsessed by watching those, actually. I love it when they catch them.
Yeah, he caught him out, and you seen him. I was like, I was told about it. I thought, I can't believe it's him. Watched the video, I was like, it is. And then I go after, I am accusing him. And I have to be, because if I'm cheeky, then or have an attitude with them, I won't get my delivery made, and I'll get in trouble with work. You'll probably get into trouble. Yeah, you'll get into trouble for being prejudiced or biased or something. And you've got a 10-year-old. Yeah, I've got a 10-year-old boy, but he's a boy, and I know that's not safer, but at least I sometimes do think, especially with what's going on in society nowadays, I think, well, I'm kind of glad he's a boy. Now, that kind of leads me to another thing, but I'm just going to say this as well. I actually know, I've read up a little bit about this. You might know this, I don't know. But I know why paedophiles like children, but only from the age of around 9 or 10. And that's something to do with when you start getting a sexual drive, when your body changes as a male, you start being into people of your own age. And that part of your brain on some people just doesn't develop, and that's why they're into kids when they get older. But I don't understand how you could be in that picture you've posted. I don't know how that can turn anyone on.
It's so disturbing, isn't it? Just that image. I mean, we're talking about actual children being raped, but oddly enough, just seeing that image, it's
disgusting.
It clicks something in your brain, doesn't it? It's just like, what the hell are we doing?
I know. I mean, I only heard it. I was driving home when I first heard it. I thought this bottle, but then you showed it again. I'm like, that looks so realistic. It looks like an actual kid, and she also looks like she's almost crying a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. She looks sad. You think, is that the kick? I really don't know. And just the final thing, just something else to throw at you. You mentioned Ian Watkins when you were going through all these names and stuff. By the way, I was a massive Lost Prophets fan. I loved their music.
Yeah.
But apparently, because I know a bit about their band and that, he was never had no tendencies until he got into drugs. And then he got into drugs, and then all of a sudden he started getting interested in weird things.
Babies. His thing was babies.
Yeah.
Actual babies, not even toddlers. Babies in nappies was his thing.
Yeah. It just, I mean, and do you know, I think I've put money in his pocket. He's dead now. You do know that, don't you? He died a couple of weeks ago. He got killed in prison.
He got killed in prison, didn't he? What a shame.
Yeah, he did.
Biggest. I'll have a little cry for him later.
Wasn't it? You know, they get their own way. And finally, one other thing to say as well, because I want to rush through these because I know you're going to have a lot of callers on this.
Yeah, there is a lot.
You know the rape gangs. It's not for pleasure. People don't do that for pleasure. This isn't a pleasure thing; it's a power thing. I'm trying to say, because I don't know if this is related, but you've come up with statistics today that are huge, and I don't know. Like, I raised the point that it could have always been like that, or it could have amplified because it's related to that. I don't know. That was just another thing I thought. So, because you didn't ask a question, so many things have gone through my head, so many things thinking about it.
Well, that's good. Maybe I'll do this more often then, not be able to find a question, because it's actually really interesting, because it's just like, I just needed to, it's just one of those things I just felt I have to talk about this. I don't know what we're going to say or where we're going to go, but I have to talk about this. This cannot go ignored. And yeah, maybe it has, and oddly, it's very interesting how that image of that sex doll has really shaken people.
It's awful. It looks so real.
I know.
And
if you read, honestly, if you read the sales description, it would turn your stomach.
Yeah.
Talking about genitalia and anatomically correct and, you know.
What do you think cause this, though? Why?
I don't know.
I know you don't. You say you don't know.
I really do. I don't understand it, and what I also don't understand is how the rich and powerful are also involved in this. And like you said, it's a power thing. I don't believe rape is about sex. I believe rape is about power, right? It's about hating, and it's about, I don't know why it's called paedophile, because that's the love of children, right? I mean, if you're a Francophile, you love France. This isn't about loving children. This is about denigrating children. This is about torturing. I mean, this is, I don't know why it's called paedophile, but I'm with you, Kevin. I'm at a loss, but I genuinely believe that if as a society, if we don't get a grip on this, we're worth nothing.
Yeah, you the way your little bio, or whatever you call it, analog that you said just before you spoke to me, you nailed that, Petrie. What I mean, I do agree with that. We do need to up our defence. We definitely do. It's 1936, 1937 territory. We've been saying this for a while. A lot of people just ain't paying attention. But you nailed it. What you defended? Oh, and you said the good NHS. That NHS is awful. I have to go private, and I don't own a lot. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, what are we doing in this? What are we doing? You know, I mean, if this is allowed to just go on and on and on and get worse and worse, what are we? It's really shaken me. It's really made me think. Well, what is this about? What? Like I said, I did another question. Don't have one yet. Kevin, wonderful to talk to you. Really good calls. Thank you. I've got to take another break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. And it's been a really interesting hour, actually, and loads of you calling in and leaving messages as well. So I feel less alone with my fury. So thank you very much. I'm still confused as hell about this, and I know that I won't sleep tonight, but because my brain just can't shut down. So I'm thinking about what the hell is going on. Chris sent a message saying Shein should be targeted and closed down. Well, there's now an investigation, a Europe-wide investigation, European investigation into Shein. They have taken it down. To be fair to them, they said they didn't know it was there. I think it's their responsibility to know that the site is selling realistic child sex dolls, but you know. So I don't have any. I'm not an apologist for them at all, and I will never shop there. I mean, I don't anyway, but I will never shop there because of it. But Chris also goes on to say money needs to be generated to target not only the pedos but also the grooming gangs. Completely agree. Until the government takes it seriously, it can only get worse. The Chinese have re-education camps. Copy that model. Why not? I don't think you can re-educate them. I mean, Raj Paso earlier on was saying that the recidivism rate, the reoffending rate with child sex offenders is amongst the highest. It was proof, isn't it? We don't lock them up long enough, and then we expect. Oh, I can't even. Sammy says, my son-in-law's niece's boyfriend was caught with hundreds of category A, B and C pictures. And A is the absolutely most disgusting stuff you could ever imagine. I've said it before, but I was doing a story on this and I had to get a lawyer to approve the search that I had to make so I knew what I was talking about, so that my search history didn't get me arrested. And I saw some of these images, and still that doll actually is one of the most disturbing. He got a slapped wrist and was back on social media and in dodgy groups within a week. He was also used in advertising for a local college. I was straight on the phone reporting him and got him removed from the college ads. He just got warned to behave. Great. See? This is why aren't we taking it seriously? Hundreds of category A, B and C pictures. They are the absolute, Ofcom wouldn't even allow me to describe those pictures to you. I couldn't even describe them to you. They are so bad without getting Ofcom'd. David is in Scotland. David, good morning.
Hello, Petrie. It's very nice to hear from you, and wonderful show.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
No, you're welcome. I speak from the victim side. I was abused as a child.
I'm so sorry.
I was 19. It's okay. I was 19. There's 2 cases that have been through everything to the finish. So I've dealt with it now, but it took me 40 years to come to that. I was also somebody tried to grab me at a fair, at Wokingham Fair, back in 1983, must have been. Sydney, can't remember his last name, but the gang that killed Jason Swift and Mark Tilsley. And I was too afraid to come forward.
How old were you then?
I was 13.
Oh my God.
I'd cycled to the fair on a rainy night because I wanted to have some fun. And there was nobody at the fair apart from these workers who were playing on the punch machine. And I was grabbed by one of them, Richard, forget his name, but he was skinny and wiry and horrible, and he grabbed me on my arm. And I've only recently lost my mum, and I told her before she died. But my family were not... I was too afraid to tell them because I'd grown up in a services family, and I was afraid of the shame that I might sort of release on my family. So I hadn't said anything for years and years, and I turned to drink because I didn't have any friends. And really it was like that for about 30 years. I went through a marriage, and my wife left me. I had 2 girls who were somewhere up in the Midlands somewhere, and I love them very much, but I don't have very much contact at all. But when my mum died, my stepfather decided to kind of unleash on me because he thought I was a bad person, which I wasn't. I was just keeping very, very bad secrets. So I just want to ring tonight, giving anybody some courage to come forward to talk about what they've been through, as I did, because I did it 10 years ago now. And just to say that we're not a long way from the war. I know we're some way, but I just think it's something that's come from that, maybe, that families have really struggled with secrets and struggled with skeletons in cupboards and not really told the truth to their children and their grandchildren. And that maybe even because, we don't all know everything. So when we are challenged by these things that we don't know, when we become aware of these things, we can be told some awful things, and we're surprised to know them, but they're just what goes on, because it's as if those things that we don't know about are unspoken about, so we're ashamed.
That's the thing. That's David. That is something that we've got to change as a society. Is that the shame is never on the victim. The shame should never be on. It's like rape victims as well, who are too ashamed to come forward. And it was the was it Giselle Pellico, the woman whose husband had her raped by all those men, and she's written a book, and she says in that we've got to turn the narrative. She said, I came forward. I am not ashamed. The perpetrators should be ashamed, but somehow we take that shame into our own hearts. And this is, David, I'm so sorry that this has impacted your whole life and you felt you couldn't talk to anyone. I think that is the most heartbreaking thing.
It's just been it's been amazing in one way, because I've been able to share it. I've been able to share it with professional people, with policemen. And okay, I didn't know the right thing was going to happen, and like the grooming gangs and everything else like that that's currently in the press. But this is serious, you know, and people have got to realise that there's a lot of victims out there that haven't got a voice, that need support, and the support section at the moment is going through horrendous time, because there's not enough people around to be able to support people.
But we can all do that, right? As a society, we should be doing that. You know, people, as